Mic test.
It's a little loud, Dave.
Council about, do you want us to initiate something? But nothing's been initiated.
Okay.
You can come join us.
Mic test. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Have my tongues anymore. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Newberg City Council work session for July 18, 2016. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Mayor, all present except with the exception of Councilor McKinney.
Thank you. Before we begin, Councilor Bacon.
Well, I'm glad to see all of you out here tonight. But I know our hearts are all heavy with what happened in Dallas, so we'd like to take a few minutes to do a moment of silence.
Thank you all. I appreciate it very much. Consent calendar, please. I would like to take you to page 4, if I may. Page 4 of the consent calendar. I think we need to include Councilor Essen in the work session that we had that evening on June 20th. Don't you think we need to, Councilor Essen? Yes. So you'll adjust the minutes to reflect that. Anything else on the consent calendar? Anything else on other agenda items? Anything for council business? I have 2 items. One, just briefly, the old-fashioned parade, and then I want to speak a little bit to the schedule for our Poisdorf visitors. Anything else for the consent calendar or the business session, Councilor Essen?
Yes, I would like to discuss the Special Olympics a bit.
All right. Anything else? Councilor Bacon?
I have had staff approach me that are interested in doing a smoking ban on city property.
Anything else for council business? Nothing appearing? Then I think we'll move to one of the real good business items that we've had for some time on our consent calendar, and a delight. So with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Chief Casey.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight we're going to do one of the functions of my job that I really give to enjoy and appreciate, and that is swearing in, or, excuse me, promoting some of our officers. I want to thank you all for your support over the years that you've given to the police department. We're very aware of how supportive our council and city officials are, and we very much appreciate that. So I also want to thank all the families that have shown up here tonight to support the family and the officers. And so with that, can I get Cameron, Dale, Chris, and Jay, come on up. So what do you guys do? Just kind of see if you can follow directions. Line up there. That's a good start. So, I'll tell you, one of my goals as a chief when I started was, you know, at one time when I leave this agency, to leave it in better shape than it's in today, or when I got it. And this is a step in that direction. These are some tremendous people, most importantly, and they're very good police officers, and we're very proud of them. So I have here in front of me, or next to me, Cameron Ferguson. Cameron's being promoted to sergeant, and he is from Rochester, Michigan. He graduated from Grand Oak University with a business major. His dad, Lee, he's a detective for Lake Oswego. And Cameron tells me he's really looking forward to this day because he outranks his dad now. He's going to take orders from him anymore. So I'd love to be there Christmas time. Great. So Cameron started in 2009. He was quickly promoted to detective. He's a member of our honor guard, and he is married to Melissa. Who's Melissa? They have to call you out. She works in our records department, and they have a 2.5-year-old child, Reagan. So, all right, next is Chris Rasmussen. Chris started in the Newberg Reserve Department in 1992. He became full-time in 1995. He made a big mistake in 1995 when he went to Hillsborough Police Department. And he returned 2009. He was a motor officer in Hillsborough and actually had a really good career over there. Chris is a field training officer. He's married to his wife, Sean, and he's a grandpa. And he enjoys racing motorcycles and raising heritage hogs. I don't know what that is, but he enjoys it. Okay, Chris is being promoted to corporal. Dale Link is a native Oregonian, and he was a member of the U.S. Marine Corps. And now, I understand our city manager is retired from the Army. Right?
It is, yeah.
Okay, well, Dale tells me that the only reason you go to the Army is if you couldn't make it to Marine Corps. Is that what you said, Dale? No, you didn't say it.
I love Marines.
So Dale's been married 28 years to his wife, Angie. And they have 4 kids and 2 grandkids. Okay, 2 granddads now. Isn't that great? Dale started out with the city of Dundee. He was actually a reserve fire volunteer there and a reserve officer. He was hired full-time in 1995, and he came to Newberg in 1998. And Dale's got a whole host of things he's done. He's been a motor officer, a field training officer, defensive tactics instructor, emergency vehicle operations, first aid medic, firearms, mental health crisis response team member, Yamhill County Accident Reconstruction Team, and he's involved with Special Olympics, and he's also a member of the Honor Guard. So, and next is Jay Stearns. So, I like to say if I could find 35 Jay Stearns, I would really sleep easy at night. Jay is a tremendous human being and just does everything right all the time. Jay was born in Dallas, Texas. His father was a police officer at Arlington, Texas Police Department. Moved to Oregon in 1990 and met his wife Whitney at Oregon State. Go Beavers. And they've been married 13 years. They got 3 sons, Isaac, Caden, and Abram. And Jay was hired in 2008 and at Silverton PD, and he transferred over to Newberg in 2011. He's also a field training officer and a member of the DVRT, which is our domestic response violence domestic violence response team. So with that said, I'd like to take a minute to swear these guys in and make it official. Yeah. Absolutely. Where would you like them?
Go that way, guys.
180 degrees.
These guys are not going to let you. All right. So Jay, what I'm going to have you do, I'll swear these guys in first. So I'll have you stand off to the side there. Okay. Let me see if I can stand someplace when I'm out of the way. Okay, if you raise your right hand and repeat after me, please. I state your name. Do solemnly swear to preserve and enforce the laws of Newberg and Dundee. Those big words. The Constitution of the United States of America and the state of Oregon.
The Constitution of the United States of America and the state of Oregon.
I will abide by the policies, rules, and regulations of the Newberg Dundee Police Department.
I will abide by the policies, rules, and regulations of the Newberg Dundee Police Department.
And I will faithfully perform the duties of police supervisor for the cities of Newberg and Dundee during my continuance therein.
And I will faithfully perform the duties of supervisor of the cities of Newberg and Dundee during
My continuance therein.
my continuance there.
You're good.
Thanks.
Okay, Jay, raise your right hand and repeat after me, please. And Jay's a detective, so he's gonna get this straight, so. I state your name.
I, Jay Stevens,
Do solemnly swear to preserve and enforce the laws of the Newberg and Dundee.
do solemnly swear to
Preserve and enforce the laws of Newberg and Dundee.
Newberg and Dundee,
The Constitution of the United States of America and the state of Oregon.
the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of Oregon.
I will abide by the policies, rules, and regulations of the Newberg and Dundee Police Department.
I will abide by the policies and ordinances
Regulations of the Newberg and Dundee Police Department.
of the Newberg and Dundee Police Department.
I will faithfully perform the duties of police detective
I will faithfully perform the duties of police detective
for the cities of Newberg and Dundee during my continuance therein.
for the cities of Newberg and Dundee during my continuance there.
There you go. You got it. That's good. Got a couple new badges for these guys. Now, I don't know, did you guys want somebody to put these on? Yeah. Great, okay. Wonderful. Shot. Now, if anybody like to take some photos, now would be a good time to do that. How you want, you mean as far as putting them on? Yeah. Well, you can separate yourself maybe.
I know you're taking
Hey, Ed, you guys, you like to shake with Ed. Is that right? Councilor Who's getting their agenda? You guys are making
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Congratulations. You found out who got my car? Congratulations. I'm sure you do.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Sergeant. Take care, guys.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir, I appreciate it.
Stephen McKinney, your microphone, please.
We're extremely fortunate to celebrate an excellent police department. Later on in our meeting, we're all going to observe a moment of silence for those that have fallen in service to their cities. In the cities of Baton Rouge, Dallas, and other municipalities around the nation. If you're available at 7 o'clock, the mayor has graciously consented to schedule that observance. But to you and your families and your children, a hearty thank you from the Council of Newberg City.
Thank you.
Congratulations, gentlemen. Now the work begins. Ours. With that, now we'll move to a project update on a report for the pavement maintenance and funding master plan project. And I believe, Karn, are you and Jay going to carry this one? Okay. Give the room a chance to clear for a moment.
You guys know how to clear a room.
I didn't get the word that, what's his name's going to be here? Oh, yeah.
We can evict him from the room.
You're most welcome, Tony.
Thank you, sir.
All right. The floor is yours.
Sure, just for a second. Good evening, Mayor Andrews and Council. Jay Harris, your Public Works Director. Tonight I have Karin Hoffman, our city engineer, and Tony Roos, our pavement consultant from Kittleson, here to talk about the latest and greatest for our pavement master plan update. So some quick history. In January, we sort of wrapped up. I gave you guys a presentation, and you guys formulated some direction for us. And that direction that we took was to maintain our existing pavement index with a proper amount of funding. Not improve it necessarily right away, but just to maintain it. And to look at this first, to fund the program, we need about $1.9 million a year in additional revenue. And to fund it in pieces, don't take all one source of revenue. So we're given direction to look at a street utility fee and a street lighting fee. And so we put together an ad hoc committee, and we met with them last week. And we're going to talk more about that in a second. And so with the phase one funding, the transportation utility fee and the street lighting fee, we're getting ready to take off and do some work on different types of modeling of that. And then we're going to develop a capital improvement project plan that matches the funding that's available right now. And the goal is to try to set up, perhaps, we'd still need to talk about the time frame a little bit, but maybe a 10-year snapshot of projects to come, implement the phase one funding, assume that the phase two funding is following behind it within a prudent time period, maybe 2 years from now, and to meet your goal of maintaining the pavement condition index. So Karin is going to speak next about where are we right now today.
So Karin Hoffman, city engineer. So we have hired a consultant team. As Jay noted, Tony Roos is from Kittleson Associates, and he is the project manager. We also have Craig Younger from Geodesign on the team. Kristen Keebler is our public involvement consultant, and we have two excellent financial folks, Deb Glardy and Nick
You said it.
Papadak.
There you go.
Papadak, that are helping us out with the financial modeling and those types of projects. We also have an advisory committee. We met as Jay noted, last Thursday for the first time. Counselor Johnson and Finance Director Zook are members of that committee, and the mayor and the city manager are ex officio members. And again, that first meeting was Thursday, and Mayor and Counselor Johnson, feel free to jump in, but we all thought it went really well, and the folks around the table had some really good questions and thoughts and comments to help us move forward with this project. But first, we kind of gave them an update, some history about what they're going to be talking about. And so this was the classification of the pavement condition, kind of letting people know the difference between very good, poor, very poor, those types of things. And again, it starts with very little or no cracking, and then goes to obviously fair is where you get the alligator cracking. That's when it looks like the back of an alligator. There's a lot of different cracks. And once you hit that fair, it really falls off pretty quick, which you can see by this PCI diagram. And this is kind of the holy grail for pavements, and this is how it works. You start out with a very good, and you get a 40% a PCI drop at 75% of the life. And then once you get past that point, it drops off pretty quickly. So if you don't get it before it hits that fair, all of a sudden you're down to poor within no time at all. So that will be one of the struggles that we've already started talking about is do we maintain some good pavements? Do we do poor pavements? How do we make that mix happen and work to get that PCI where we want it to be? Again, types of maintenance. We talked about everything from crack sealing, fog sealing. Those are, again, those things you do on good pavements. Those are the first things you do to keep those pavements at that good condition. Slurry seal and chip sealing is a little bit more work, and obviously that is basically a mixture of asphalt emulsion and some fine aggregate normally put on the roadway, spread over the entire roadway. And then you jump into actually rehabilitation, and you get to pavement overlays, everything from thin lifts to 2.5 inches, and then pavement grinding and inlay, which is where mostly we have been when we've been to rehabilitation. We have a tougher time in the cities doing pavement overlays because we have curbs that we have to deal with. And if you just put 2 inches asphalt on top of the existing, all of a sudden you don't have any curbs anymore, and your storm drainage doesn't work. So in most cases, we're doing pavement grinding and inlay within the city. So I'm going to turn it over to Tony at this point.
All right. Thank you. So I'm Tony Roos with Kittleson and Associates. Like they said, we had our first ad hoc meeting last Thursday evening. We have our next one scheduled for August 3rd. That's right, yeah. And we're taking that in small pieces of describing. So last Thursday was a background on what is pavement maintenance, why is it important. Went really in depth into the chart you saw, why it's important to catch it early. Less cost at the top line, way more cost at the bottom when you get into the reds to bring it back into the green. It's easier to keep it in the green with smaller amounts of money for long periods of time. The second meeting we're going to look at is maintenance prioritization of what roads do we fix and when. So we're going to ask our ad hoc committee to look at, if we look at the pavement maintenance failure where our roads are red, that's red is usually bad, and we have a map through the PCI that was done in 2014, it's there's big chunks in this area of Newberg, the older areas of Newberg, and the greens are in the newer subdivisions. And like you said, there's a lot more money involved in doing a red road than there is in maintaining a green or a yellow road. So we're going to ask the ad hoc committee to work through how do we allocate the funds that we do have to get the road PCI up. So it'll be a good chunk of time at the next meeting. The third meeting will be looking at the funding allocation. So when we do a transportation utility fee, there's a myriad of ways that we can allocate the fee between residents and businesses, institutions, city parks, what have you. Everybody's in the pool, everybody uses the road, so we need to find a way to allocate those fees fairly across every user of the roadway. So we'll spend that time looking at the ITE manual, trip generations, and what is fair, and comparing what other cities do and see what we want to do in our city. The fourth meeting we're going to have with the group is going to be a compilation of the plan development and having them go through the entire package before it comes to City Council for approval. And then implementation, hopefully that's all done in late November, early December.
So, again, the ad hoc committee, the first meeting went very well. They jumped right in and gave a lot of recommendations and a lot of thoughtfulness. I mean, one of the things that came up in the meeting that you two might speak about is when you allocate funding, this area is demographically different than other areas of the city. And the committee was a little bit worried about, maybe all the money went here or none of the money went here. That if we don't mix projects around the city of various types and various demographics, that they're really concerned about that. I think the cross-section of the ad hoc committee is well chosen. We have a representative, from the faith community and from council and from business, large, small. We have a good cross-section of the schools, citizens. So I think it's a good committee, and I think we'll get a good recommendation out of the committee. We have 4 meetings left total, is that correct? So we'll see what happens. So the plan is to bring a ordinance to council in the last meeting in November, with the culmination of all this. We'll be speaking to you several times, though. The next time, from what I remember from the schedule, is in September. I think it's the second meeting in September.
Before we go out for a public open house.
Yeah, then we'll have an open house. One last thing I wanted to talk to you about was in the January meeting, I gave you a bunch of different funding options. Gas tax was one of them. The information that I'd got from the state of Oregon was a 3 cents tax would generate about $90,000 a year in revenue. They've just implemented a new software reporting system and they were having issues. It's now a 3 cents tax is about $600,000, which seems correct. So anyways, when we look at phase 2 funding, we have potential for maybe a local gas tax, potentially a bond measure, a levy, and some other sundry options that we can look at. So, but that was good news that the gas tax wasn't as low as what the state, their fuel volumes were off. And so that was good news. Do you guys have anything else to add? That concludes our presentation.
Comments or questions from the council? Councilor Essen?
With the new numbers,
Woodruff.
sorry.
Go ahead, Councilor Corey.
Yes, with the new numbers, do you think we may be looking at implementing a gas tax in the future? Because as I recall, we didn't think it was worth the drill for $90,000.
Councilor Essen, that's correct. For $90,000, it's a tremendous amount of work, to put it up as a measure. And I would think that it's very viable now. If council chooses that option down the road, we're continuing to get updates from the state. The last update in sales was in March. I have an email out to them now to get another update. Typically, the summer season, the mileage goes up, the distribution. Fuel in Oregon's tax with the fuels tax at the distribution level, not at the retail level. So when the tanker comes in, that's when the tax is reported, or the volume is reported and the tax is calculated. So, I think that's another viable option that we could be looking at to complete the full funding package.
I have a follow-on for that. It doesn't have to be at the distribution, it can be at the pump, at the retailer, could it not?
That's correct. I think Dundee's doing that right now,
Okay,
that I
that-
think
that
they
just-
go
That is an
directly.
alternative into collection, right?
That's correct.
Thank you. Counselor Woodruff?
Just a clarification, you were talking about the advisory committee, and in the PowerPoint here, you say it looks like it's just Patrick and Matt Zook, but so it's more of a community committee?
That's correct. There's 12 members, and then the mayor and city managers. So we have, and then you add staff in, we got a full room. I think we're
Okay.
up to about 20 total.
Okay, great, thank you.
Counselor Corey?
Yeah, it's, part of my question was kind of what Councilor Essen was referring to regarding the gas tax. The other question is, again, regarding funding, though. You mentioned the transportation utility fee / street lighting fee. And then that's what you're mentioning here, but that's not going to be the source of funds, right? I mean, have we determined where the source of funding is coming from? I guess that's my question, or is that coming from the committee later on? I'm not sure where we're at on the
Yeah,
process.
so the direction from council is, I had the list of a bunch of different items, so I got maintain PCI, and to look at split sources of funding, and to evaluate the transportation utility fee and street lighting fee first on the schedule. And then as alternate funding comes in, it would be phase 2, that's a couple years from now, that's gas tax and other ones. So we've been moving ahead with the transportation utility fee
Okay, follow on.
calculations.
So I'm trying to put it all together. It sounds like then our road is going to be 2, 3 or years or longer before we can maintain the pavement. And I think right now we have streets that need to be paved. And are we going to kind of let it go for 2, 3, 4 more years? Or how are we going to keep what we have now?
Karen Hoffman, city engineer. Yeah, we're actually backsliding. We've got a $14 million backlog of projects that need to be done to maintain the PCI where it is today. We've got about $250,000 every year to do pavement maintenance right now. So one project that will actually be before this council for awarding contract is our next capital project, which we will be doing. We will be paving on Elliott Road and North Springbrook, as much as money as we can get, payment as we can get out of the money that we have available. But yeah, no, we are constantly in a backslide situation, and until there are more funding is available, we'll continue that route. And then also, one thing to keep in mind, no matter what funding mechanism we implement, it's going to take some time to build up some money in order to go out and do projects. So that's one thing. It won't be an immediate, we implement a fee or a gas tax or whatever, and all of a sudden we have, lots of money to go spend on roads. It'll take some time.
One more follow-on. So if all of these, if the gas tax comes into place, the utility fee, street lighting fee, all is in place, that's not nearly going to be enough funding to cover the cost of doing the roads. So my impression when we started the whole issue was we were going to determine how we were going to get funding enough to meet the 1.9 mil that we're talking about. But it sounds like we're now just kind of piecemealing, kind of slowly getting somewhere, rather than saying, okay, we're going to get the 1.9 million this way, and it's going to be done in a year. We'll have those funds so we can take off and do the roads, or do the roads in the meantime, spending those funds. But that's not going to be the way it's done, right?
Yeah, Councilor Corey, and I didn't lay out a time frame of implementation of a certain, like the street utility fee, for example. I did get to you and tell you, it was going to be sometime later in the year. With that fee, though, like our city engineer had said, that it takes some time to build up the utility fee. So even if it's passed in the fall, we'll be funding next year's projects at a higher level, next summer's project, and then the next summer of that even higher. The plan was, out of the 1.9 million, is try to get near $1 million. A little more than half is what I'm hopeful to do. It might be a little more, it might be a little less. The committee, and we can bring up that concern to the committee and, maybe press the street utility fee a little higher if there's a way to do that. Maybe we present to council a couple different recommendations, one maybe for a little lower and one maybe for a little higher, something like that. So you have maybe a little of a menu to choose from. And we have a lot of options at this point because we're just starting. We have Mayor Andrews and Councilor Johnson on the ad hoc committee. Maybe they can voice those concerns that, we need to get moving here. We've been waiting for a long time. So there's counselors here that have been involved with this for a long time, and it's slow to come around, I would have to agree.
Councilor McKinney?
Some of my comments and questions are similar to Mike's. The CPI was done in 2014, so we've had 2 years of further deterioration. So maybe the CPI is worse off than it was when we started talking about this. My impression is that the council's concern predates any ad hoc committee regarding decisions to be made about this. I believe that the council would be prepared to make some necessary decisions prior to the recommendation of an ad hoc committee, like the proceeding with the 3-cent gas tax, which, better to generate 600,000 sooner rather than later. One of the options that's always been on the table is, Karen, you're prudent enough to remind us that there's $14 million of backlog, but there's another $14 million of catch-up, so that's about 28 mil. That figure seems to run through when I was running for office, that we had a $28 million problem. We didn't have a $14 million problem. So I'm concerned that council goals have not been met in relationship to the establishment of the ad hoc committee. Our concern predates some of this business here. So I'm hoping to see something, some interim steps that you can plug into the ad hoc committee as they're going there. But my real concern is that we're 10 years away from seeing substantial changes in the road, rather than 4 or 5 years. I'd like to also come into possession of the names who's on the ad hoc committee. If there's 12 names, if there's 20 names or whatever, I don't think the council has ever seen that list of who's on there. So my concerns are $14 million of backlog, $14 million of additional necessary work, a $28 million deficit in trying to deal with roads, an outdated PCI already, and what can we do to accelerate a timetable so that we can see something substantial done on roads rather than, I appreciate the work that's being done, except we seem to be kicking the can further down the road. We're not making any substantial headway here. And in the meantime, the PCI continues to suffer every year, some of the others. So that's my concern.
Councilor Johnson.
Good evening. I'm trying to see if I have the list of names here. I don't. I'm sure staff will forward those to you. I have some of them, but not all of them, so I'll get those to you. I was really heartened, and having attended the committee meeting, I could definitely see where people were going kind of in 2 tracks. One is ongoing maintenance and how we pay for ongoing maintenance and the deficit we have from the gas tax versus what's needed. And then another piece is this unfunded kind of problem we have sitting out here with mostly if I'm honest. Old Town is what I'll call it, or this, this side of Newberg, Edwards and, this way. And so you have these two problems. And I think from a council standpoint, and again, I'm jumping in the middle, so correct me if I'm wrong. I would love it if we could do something sooner rather than later, put our foot on the gas, as it were, and get something, either we could do a bond or a levy and ask voters and say, hey, look, we've got this, do you want to fix these projects? I mean, staff has the projects. This is exactly where it will go, and put it for a vote. And if they support it, we start digging. That's pretty quick. On the meantime, the political question becomes, if we put something like that out for a vote, we still have this deficit for the maintenance, right? So if we send out for a bond and say, we're going to fix all these streets, and then 6 months to a year later, we say, but street lighting is coming out of our transportation funds, and we'd love if it had its own funding source so we can use all that money for streets. And we want to do a fee, or we want to do a gas tax. Politically, what's the comfort level with doing something like that? Because we can do that as a council, but know that people are going to say, well, we've already voted for a bond. Why the heck are you asking us for more money for streets? So I think that's one of the conversations that the committee is going to have, and find out. What I liked about it is everybody in the room recognized there was a problem. And that's nice when you have people like Jack Reardon on there, and he's talking about, wow, I think another piece of the story that we need to tell is, how did we get here? How did this happen? And it's a problem that's systemic in Oregon. It's not just us. It's, everywhere. So that's the comment I'd have for tonight. So thank you.
City Manager, you had your light on?
It was, Mayor, Council, I was only going to remind that same thing. The committee will look at, if you make the tough decision about which tool to use, you can bond against that. So you're talking about, gathering the money. There's a cost to that, but that's very real. The tough decision is, which tool is everyone comfortable with doing, and then you can accumulate the funds. But and that's already a committee discussion to realize.
Councilor Hessen?
Well, first of all, I'm wanting to thank the mayor for putting together this ad hoc committee, because I think every councilor here is delighted to see that we're doing some real planning here, and I think you've got a good team. I know I attended the rate review committee. At that time, I believe, Patrick, you were on that rate review committee. No? Okay, but in the rate review committee, all of this came up. And there was some discussions about whether or not we could bond enough money to get this done. And as I heard, and I believe you had a consultant there that was telling us how we were going to get this done. And one of the things that was brought up was that, and I'm not sure if it was this area where we were up against a potential of not being able to bond enough to get enough money to get this. But I don't remember for sure if this was the area. I know that there was so many areas we were trying to fund. It was amazing. But I can tell you, in my park superintendent day, the fair, in my view, was failing, because alligator blacktop means that the water has penetrated down, and the support gravel underneath is breaking down, and that's too late. You want to get it before it alligators. If it alligators, it's a bad thing. So I would hope, and knowing citywide what a big deal this is, I'm just excited that you guys are moving ahead on it. But I think what the council, if I get the sense of the council, is, and I'm sure Patrick's going to be there, and the mayor and the city manager is probably aware of it also, this is something I think we need to really step on the gas and figure out some way, because the problem with it is it's 14 million today. 5 years from now, it's way more than that. So it's not, it could be 20. So it's like pay me now or pay me later. And so it's not a matter of saving money by not doing it. It's just not doing the job that needs to be done to keep our streets up. And that's a tough situation. So I'm just saying I'm really pleased to see that we are moving ahead with an ad hoc committee and it's being addressed. And I want to thank all of you for that. That's a great, I'm really excited to see this happening.
Councilor Johnson?
Very quickly, I just forwarded the council, and I'll forward it to the paper too, Karen's report email she sent me. The document called Committee Protocol has a list of all the committee members and staff members that are working on this, so it should be in your inbox when you get home tonight.
Councilor McKinney?
I think Kern's heard me say this, roads, they're either okay or they're not okay. Sometimes PCI is just a way of kind of classifying how alligator they are or something, I don't know. But in my mind, I think that we've talked as a council about this for so long, either the roads are okay or they're not okay. And it's imperative that we make some type of decision sooner than later. I was a little bit confused about methodology. My impression is that we're not choosing just one vehicle to drive over these poor roads. It's what we're choosing. We're choosing multiple tools to achieve this. So the synchronization of those tools, I think, becomes real important as we lay down a timeline to be able to deal with this. But I will reiterate, thank you for your work. I really appreciate Patrick's comment is that it's time to step on the gas.
Stephen Councilor McKinney had a question for you on how you're putting this together. Kind of an indirect, do you want to respond to that, please?
Are you talking about the full funding schedule, phase 1, phase 2, and that sort of time frame?
It was the councilor's question, not mine, so I know he posed it as a question.
It's probably rhetorical. It's time to step on the gas.
Okay, and we're on track for the phase 1 funding sometime in November. You'll be seeing an ordinance on that. We've gone through the ad hoc committee. We have meetings and processes and things we need to involve the community with there. That time frame's pretty set. The phase 2 funding, though, that we're going to be putting in the model, we can speed that process up and get with council, first part of the year. There'll be a few new councilors, sit down with the group, get everyone up to speed where we are today with the transportation utility fee and the street lighting fee, if council chooses to adopt it this fall, and then move forward quickly with the other options to complete the funding package.
Follow on.
Go ahead.
It might be nice to see a synopsis of what phase 1 is again, a brief synopsis with a bullet point of it involves the following tools and processes. Phase 2, a brief explanation, whatever it is. It employs choosing what kind of tools and, the implementation of a timeline or whatever. Over the course of several years, we've read so many words on this particular subject, it's no longer perfectly clear about what we are. So a great summary or synopsis would be beneficial for me. I can't speak for the rest of it.
We can certainly do that, Councilor McKinney.
You have mentioned, and it has been mentioned, the adjustment in the street lighting and the transportation. So can you be a little more specific? You were quite specific, and I think the clarity was understood by the committee, but I'm not sure that you've been that clear as to what you mean by the street lighting doing this or the pavement doing this, or so can you give that put a little more flesh on the frame there, please?
Sure. So in this phase 1 funding, we currently are separating it into 2 different funding sources. One would be a monthly street lighting fee that you would pay. And what that will do is bring in about $300,000 that would pay for our street lighting that we're currently using gas tax money. So we're spending $300,000 a year with gas tax money to keep the lights going. We would take that and supplement it on your municipal services statement bill. You'll see a line item for street lighting, which will equal about $300,000. So we'll be able to take the gas tax funding that we're currently spending and put that $300,000 to work out on the pavement systems. The second fee that we're proposing and working with the ad hoc committee to discuss is a street utility fee. And those models of how you generate revenue for a street utility fee can vary. Trip generation basis is one of the more popular ones. Every single family home is, how many trips?
9.82.
9.82. See, he had that number. So the single-family homes that people live in, there's 9.82 trips per day generated by that house. Now, the retired school teacher that lives by herself doesn't generate 9.82, but Tony's house with all the college kids coming in and out and everything, but yeah, the delivery trucks and mail and all that, it adds up to 9.82. So how you allocate that to commercial, industrial, retail, that sort of thing on the trip generation model is what the ad hoc committee is going to get into. You can also just assign a flat fee, per water meter, if it were to be that simple. And the ad hoc committee is going to get into that and figure out what methodology works for this city on that. But the goal is to generate between the street lighting fee and the street utility fee about $900,000 to $1 million a year, for the phase one funding.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Any further questions or comments from the council, for the staff? Tony, thank you for taking some time out of your day. Appreciate it very much. With that, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. We've got a minute or two. We have a couple of items on the council business, so I'm going to call on Councilor Essen. You wanted to talk about the Special Olympics?
Yes. Well, first of all, I was invited by Joe Hannon. He said, I'm going out to the Special Olympics this weekend, and I said, you are? Maybe I'd like to go out there too. And so I went out to the Special Olympics, and it was the whatever it is in the Olympics where they all march in, and the mayor was introducing everybody, and I was pleased to see that the mayor won a gold medal. He was presented for the amount of work he's done. This project, this has happened for 7 years, apparently, the last 7 years.
It's 6 years.
6 years, okay, 6 years. Well, anyway, it was the most outstanding event that you could even imagine. And each county came marching out with their athletes. And as they were marching out, a lot of them were going like this. Oh, and I meant to bring in my little clapper. I had a little clapper that because you wore yourself out clapping otherwise. But those kids were so excited. And it was such a fantastic event. And it was something that, I don't know, my mother worked for Down syndrome school for 20 years. And for me, I've seen them as babies. And what it takes for them to get to where they're doing what they're doing and they are champions. And it was an amazing event, and it was something that Newberg should be very proud of. And I'm very pleased, and it was something apparently that, and I'm not really sure of what all the mayor did, but there was an entire incredible amount of community support. Ken Austin got a gold medal also for help funding the event. And so I just think we should be very proud of that. But I was sad to learn, I guess we're going to lose the event this coming year.
And follow on, that's not a done deal yet.
good, because
We're
I was
struggling.
going
They're
to see how
struggling,
unhappy I
but
was.
it's not a
about
done
it.
deal.
Great. Apparently Nike is being
Well,
approached.
that's one rumor.
Okay. Well, that's the rumor I heard, and I was just saying, I certainly hope, if the council, if any, if the mayor needs any support, or if there's anything we can do to help him keep that event in our city, I would be very, very much in support of it, because I was very proud of Newberg, that beautiful, and they had the great dance afterwards. It was just an incredible event. So I just wanted to thank the mayor for all he did to create that, and all the people that helped
While we're
him.
handing out accolades, I think we also need to hand out accolades to the law enforcement torch run that is a statewide activity, as they bring the torch in for that, and all of the work and the reception that the law enforcement people had during the parade of athletes. All the athletes paraded down a corridor of law enforcement people, and I don't know, did you guys wear gloves to save your hands? They wanted to high five everybody in there, every one of them, and it's quite. And you've seen the site and some of the others. So, but please, Chief, convey my appreciation to all of our staff, and particularly to Sergeant Johns for the work that has been put forward with the law enforcement torch run, and how it has done such an outstanding job of representing Special Olympics Oregon. Please do that. Thank you. Very good. Let's go ahead and adjourn the work session, and we'll be at rest for approximately 10 minutes, and we'll reconvene for our business session, unless there's anything else to come before us in work session. None? We are adjourned. The councilors would take their seats, please. And you're going to do the motion for the proclamation?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here, and welcome to the Newberg Business Meeting for July 18, 2016. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Mayor, all present, duly noted.
If you would rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a proclamation. Councilor Bacon.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the proclamation for the Newberg Old Fashioned Festival. And I'm reading it from a different page. Okay. Adopt the proclamation declaring July 28, 31, 2016 as Newberg Old Fashioned Festival Week.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Question's been called for. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. None appearing. The proclamation. And would the court join me, please? Our old-fashioned festival court. This is nice. Thank you. A proclamation declaring July 28 through 31, 2016 as Newberg Old Fashioned Festival Week. Whereas the city of Newberg is a family-friendly community that hosts many gatherings, numerous celebrations, and a variety of entertainment venues where old friends and new ones can gather together. And whereas each year the city of Newberg and many members of the community participate by celebrating community spirit during the last full weekend in July. And whereas the city of Newberg participates in many ways and welcomes the community and visitors each year to join them in the old-fashioned festival activities and enjoy the camaraderie and sense of community built by a festival to this extent. And whereas the many Newberg old-fashioned festival events that take place during the week bring the community together for fun and entertainment. This is the 36th annual anniversary for the festival and is a special time for everyone involved in this event. The theme this year is Christmas in July. Now, therefore, it is proclaimed by myself and the City Council of the City of Newberg that July 28 through 31, 2016 is hereby designated Newberg Old Fashioned Festival Week in the City of Newberg. In witness whereof, I have put my hand to the seal and the signature of this proclamation, and I share that with you. You're going to go then. Come on. This is for the court, and this is for Brian? Is he? Go on up here. These are two more people that have worked very hard in getting ready for the preparations for this year's Newberg Old Fashioned Festival. Thank you for your participation in this year, and thank you, ladies, for representing us all over the area. Any comments? No. Thank you. May I have a city manager report, please?
Mayor and council, I've got 7 or 8, and as I go through it, the good news is these will all be in writing from now on, so I've finally now got into the pace of doing the written council updates, so you'll have these. And then beginning this week will also be, we just agreed on a format and what it would look like to the community that will be a bi-weekly update. The difference between those and our city newsletter and the mayor's news is they have slightly different focus. The Brittany continues to do our city newsletter, and that's got a real polished look to it, a lot of pictures, and a lot of time using the publisher. The mayor's muse are the ones that particularly that the mayor and a lot of his official duties. The update to you will be on topics, particularly on how we're doing of goals and the meetings that I do, so you can kind of keep track, accountability of what I'm doing to make sure it's in sync with what you like. And then the other one of the council update is a little bit longer, which you'll also get, but covers business development, permits, and a lot of the things that, or all of the things that you heard from the department head updates. And that'll go out to the general community so they can kind of get a sense of what we're doing, particularly on the economic development side. So that will, and all of those will go to the press, including my updates that I send to you will go to Colin. I just put them right on the list. A few things. One is that I apologize tonight that you are getting this one tonight, which is a attachment that I didn't pick up when we were going through. The good news is that with the Granicus system, these will all be submitted at one time, so this should be the last time that you'll get something late. And that leads to, on Wednesday of this week, then Dave Brooks will be calling each of you to set a time to do individualized training, and we have your iPads to go to the electronic version of Granicus. So we're going to take the time necessary to make sure that all of us, you and the rest of the staff, are comfortable with the process before we roll it out. But that begins this week. A couple items. There's been a lot happening recently in the last couple of weeks. Today, the police department, and Mary's here, and the chief, we met with the director of WACA and talk about the future and options related to our dispatch center and the future of 911. This is in anticipation of coming back to a work session where you'll have options, at least 4 different scenarios of the future of what happens with dispatch. And that's scheduled for, and it's on your future calendar, but it's scheduled for September 6th. So we'll come back at that time, lay out some options with some cost, and ask you for your direction. So when we were talking clearly about priorities of pavement management, I think if there are 2 huge items in the future, and we're going to talk about the future with the 5-year plan in a second, but if there's 2 big issues, it's those 2. To not really have, right this moment, an easy source of money of either allocating, but of identifying money to pay for 2 functions, it's those 2. So they'll be at a study session, and then options, and then you can give us, where you would like to take us. With that, also this week, meeting with the sheriff, and also talk through how the county fits into that. And clearly, always in one of the options, at least talking about possibilities and the pros and cons of that, would be looking to the county. And so we'll have that information to present to you after our meeting this week. I had a meeting with the county administrator, and that went very positively, and we talked about a series of issues that involve us. And one of the biggest things was communication, of us just talking to them and just reminding, the county and reinforcing that we are one of the cities in the county. We're a long way up here on the county line, but we're very proud of being part of Yamhill County and look forward to doing a lot of partnerships. In that end, it was about talking about some issues that we've had, just staff, little things, but sharing of GIS information. So we have a robust GIS system. When you see all these maps that come up in the layering and the ability to tell you about, where people are and what kinds of businesses, that's, the city pays for that service, and we have a GIS person. GIS at the county has migrated from the county to the Council of Governments. And so we wanted to make that transition a little bit smoother and get information for community development and planning and not have to necessarily pay for that as another partner. And so that we believe now has gotten smoothed out with the county. So we're very pleased. We invited them to be part of the planning that will go along with the riverfront and the mill property, and not have us be charged a fee for them participating. They understand that, and I think that has now been worked through, so we'll have them as a partner. Then we also offered to help them with things like, as we look at redevelopment and maybe brownfield issues with the landfill. So the offer is that. And then the final one is just one that asked for consideration of bringing back a possible conversation and/or committee that's at the elected levels with staff supporting of coordinating land use policies and decisions of the land, in particular between Newberg and Dundee. So inviting Dundee and the county and elected officials to talk about what's it look like in between all of the development issues, and particularly of keeping the two communities distinct. We had such a committee in the past, and it disbanded in the mid to late 90s. So at this point, it's kind of a mayor asking or making the invitation to Dundee to just talk about those issues. We spent quite a bit of time in the last week with the volunteer committee working on sister cities. So that's the mayor, Lynn Wygant, in particular, and finalizing the schedules and the plans and some official activities with the city, meeting them as they come in, and particularly they're left now, but getting the sister city group in at the old-fashioned days, special recognition of them during the greeters. So I encouraged everyone, we'll notice it as necessary, but, of greeting them there at that Friday morning, and then of just coordinating their visit at places around our county and around Newberg. So we're pretty close to that, and we'll send a finalized schedule out this week on that. There are a number of work sessions, and I'll kind of quit, except to tell you that things that we're working on to bring back to you that fit with your council priorities and goals. The first meeting in August will be the 5-year plan. So that talks about how do things like what we heard tonight of the pavement management, potentially with the dispatch, how might that fit in a goal, and what's a calendar and a schedule of getting a 5-year plan to you for consideration before we get into the budget next year. So this will be with the finance director and myself, and just laying out how we're going to get there and what some of the issues are. So during the work study session, you go, well, I didn't hear you talking about this, and then we can add it to the work schedule for that. Right on the heels of that, the second meeting in August is the next step on the transient lodging tax. So Doug will come in and just kind of lay down a potential schedule and where we go with that. That's a session that we've invited others to come and listen to your conversation. We didn't offer that they would have an opportunity to comment there. Of course, that's always your choice, but to listen. And then we've made the commitment to the stakeholders that helped us put together that plan, and specifically with the Downtown Coalition and with the Chamber and the Chamber Board, to go after that and say, this is what the council discussed, and that's their direction to us, and then get their feedback. Then that's followed by what we were just talking about in September, of coming back and talking September 6th of dispatch options, and then goal setting to take us from where we are right now with working off of draft goals, and in November on the 7th to say, here's where we'd like to go from the draft we have and the council priorities to finalize goal, and to bring that back to you. And then just without hexing anything, I'll report as one of the people that's gone through this superheated activities going to council. Housing is very difficult to get in town now. Now, we'll put that into the 5-year plan for budgets of, how assessments might go up for people, but homes are staying on the market 2, 3, and 4 days. So as someone that's gone through that, but who now made an offer on a house, the first day it came up and was accepted, given all of the other things that go with that inspection, 2 days later. And it's just multiple offers. And you already heard that, but that has an effect on all of us in terms of, pressure on community development to look at new permits, requests to annexation, affordability of homes because there's people competing with that, financial implications. But I'm here to tell you, somebody that's been going through it, houses are not staying on the market very long. And they have been running anywhere, in my experience, and we've probably looked at 24 in the last 3 weeks. They're about anywhere from a low of 10% to as much as 50% higher than what they sold the last time if it was within the last 5 years. So that has a lot of pluses. It also has some things that are challenges for us as a community. So, but I will now start giving you formal reports so they have, and I'm looking for feedback. I don't know exactly what you want. I think what I've heard is like to see activities, so I know what's going on, so you can kind of hold me accountable for it. And also, you met with that person in case you run into them. But I'm going to try not to put an epistle each time, make it so long that you won't read it. The stuff to the community, and particularly with all things happening in public works and community development, that's going to be more extensive. You'll see headlines and you can read what you want. But I think the more information we get out, both to the press, so that he can write stories about all these wonderful things happening, but just the business community so they can see what we're doing and the positive things, I think, is why it'll be a little bit more extensive. Mayor.
Questions or comments for the city manager? None appearing. Very good. Thank you. With that, I want to move into the area of public comments. I have a couple of people that have signed up for public comments. Remind all those that do make a presentation that if you keep your presentation down to a 5-minute period, I would sincerely appreciate it. That's what we expect of all others. And we allow only a certain amount of time in the agenda for it, but I don't think we're going to run that. So please keep your comments to a 5-minute period. And with that, I'm going to call on Mr. Dave Adams. And you're now on camera, Dave.
Thank you, members of the council. Dave Adams, manager, owner, KLYC Radio, McMinnville. We've started another company called CLM Online. We've started 4 different internet radio stations. One of the ones that really strikes the chord in my heart is called the Eagle, or Operation Eagle's Wings. We strongly support veterans. And we're also included in, this is an advocate encouragement to veterans. We're going to be having news. It's a internet radio station that plays classic rock, but it's designed specifically for veterans with a lot of, we're going to put some programming content on there, like little kids, kind of like a letter to any serviceman, encouraging them. One of the things we're concerned about is the issue of suicide in veterans. The veterans today are undergoing some significant challenges, multiple tours of duty, and the issue of suicide is very prevalent. So, but we've also included police and fire services as the agencies that we're also paying honor to in this network. So that's going to be happening. There's a swing station we're going to be doing, and that's one of the other stations. But right now we want to talk about the Eagle. We are going to be bringing the Wall of Honor to Newberg. The Wall of Honor has the names of 5,800 men and women killed in Iraq and Afghanistan. We had it at the Evergreen Aviation and Space Museum. 800 people attended over Memorial Day this year. We don't have a date yet for Newberg, but we're looking for a site. It costs about $3,000 to bring it here for 5 days. And the wall is based in Albany, Oregon, with a group we work with called Vets Helping Vets, which is an advocacy group for veterans. We'll be doing some more work with them as well. So more about that to come. KLYC Radio, we are looking at the possibility of increasing the power to 10,000 watts from 1 kilowatt, which is what it's at right now. That's going to take some money. But one of the goals we have is to provide better coverage of the Newberg market, especially at night. And so we're serious about engaging and serving our communities. So I think that's it for now.
Questions or comments for Dave? None appearing? Thank you.
Thanks.
Back to your camera. Mr. Kirby Faircloth, please. In plural? All right.
What would be a good place for a presentation?
Where's the camera? Can see you.
If you want me to.
Turn yours on too, Scott.
These awards that I'm going to present, well, certificates basically, they're to thank the mayor and the chief of police for the support that they have given us during the Memorial Day service. And I'd like to have the chief of police come up. Sir, would you do me the honor of presenting to your honor guard this certificate for their support during Memorial Day and the outstanding service that they rendered and the professionalism that they showed? And all of us have taken an oath to support and defend the Constitution. We may have been discharged, but we never relieved from that. We have your back, and we thank you very much for your service.
Thank you. And it's an honor and a pleasure for us to be present at the Memorial Day service, and I know that our officers on the Honor Guard, that's one of their highlights, and we have a tremendous amount of admiration and respect for our military, so thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, the Mayor, Bob Andrews, would step forward. This is in recognition for serving as keynote speaker for a Newberg Memorial Day program held in Memorial Park. Your patriotism helped teach us, inspire us, encourage us, and challenge us on how to be better citizens of our community and better Americans. We thank you for your support that you've given us, and this is our way of trying to thank you.
Well, I thank you.
We much appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The invitation to do this came out of, I don't know where, nowhere, and I really wasn't quite prepared for it. But having a very strong feeling in my own heart as a veteran, and recognizing what the veterans, whether they're deceased, whether they are lost in battle, whether they're wounded, whether they are veterans, whether they're in uniform, they're out of uniform, there's a tremendous service that they have given us, and we need to keep that before us. We need to continually remind ourselves. So thank you for the opportunity to do that. I sincerely appreciate it.
We really do appreciate the time that you gave us.
Thank you. Again, my
Thank you,
pleasure.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll shake everybody's hand here.
Thank you, gentlemen. With that, we move to the consent calendar. Pleasure of the council. Councilor Bacon?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. Is there any further discussion? None appearing. Do I hear a call for the question? Question's been called for. All in favor of adopting the consent calendar signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. None appearing. Consent calendar is adopted. Before I move into a public hearing, I think it would be appropriate if our HR director would introduce their companion this evening. Aha!
Mayor and Council, thank you for entertaining this. This is my son, Anthony
And
Lee.
you are?
My name is Anna Lee. I'm the
Thank you.
Human
See, we're
Resource.
recording this.
Yes, Human Resource Director for the city.
And with you is?
With me is my son, Anthony Lee, and he is getting an education in
I'm sure
municipal
it's an
government.
education.
So I appreciate your time and your patience with us today.
Oh, thank you. Anthony, do you want to say anything?
I've never been in a council meeting before.
Are you going to come back?
Probably, maybe, hopefully.
Probably, maybe. I like that. That's a good politician's answer.
Clearly.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for letting us have a little fun with you. We appreciate it. Thank you, Anthony, for being with us. Appreciate it. With that, we want to move to a public hearing. And the public hearing is a legislative hearing that was dealing with an ordinance authorizing city personnel or fire med personnel to operate ATVs within the city of Newberg while performing official duties and declaring an emergency. With that, I'm going to call for any abstentions, conflicts of interest, or objections to jurisdiction. None appearing. Staff report, please.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Truman Stone, your city attorney. Under the consent calendar, the council just approved a resolution accepting a donation of a ATV or a UTV, a Polaris Razor that the police reserves had purchased. The purpose of that was to use that for events such as Special Olympics, Old Fashioned Festival, high school graduation, those sorts of activities where the reserves find themselves patrolling in areas where their cars can't access it. In addition, Public Works has used gators and those types of vehicles in performance of their duties, particularly during Old Fashioned Festival and those sorts of times. So in some of the conversations we were having about use of these vehicles, we thought we'd want to make it clear under our municipal code that they were authorized to do that while in performance of official duties. So at the request of the police department, I've drafted this ordinance. It does, initially I was going to just have it say city employees, but since the TVF&R functional consolidation, I had to come up with a new definition. So we have both city-operated ATVs and fire ATVs, and this ordinance authorizes those, under those conditions, that these vehicles be authorized to drive on city streets. And that's my report, Mr. Mayor.
Questions for staff? None appearing. We would move into the public comment area, and I have nobody that is signed up for any public comments, so I'm going to open and close the public comment period. Do we receive any communications?
No, we did not.
No written communications on this. Thank you. I appreciate that. So with that, then, may I have your final comments and your recommendations, please?
Yes, Truman Stone again. There is an emergency clause in this, and that was to try to get this in effect prior to Old Fashioned Festival. And it was posted in a timely manner, so the council does have the ability to waive a second reading and adopt it tonight. And I would recommend that the council adopt ordinance 2016-2807.
Councilor Bacon?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we waive the second reading.
It's been moved and seconded McKinney, to waive the second reading. Is there any further discussion? None appearing. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. None appearing. The second reading has been waived. To the ordinance. Pleasure of the council. Councilor Bacon.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 2016-2807 and read by title only.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt ordinance 2016-2807 and read by title only. City Attorney?
Ordinance number 2016-2807, an ordinance authorizing city personnel or fire EMS personnel to operate ATVs within the city of Newberg while performing official duties and declaring an emergency.
This is a roll call vote.
Counselor McKinney?
Yes.
Counselor Johnson?
Yes.
Counselor Bacon?
Yes.
Counselor Woodruff?
Yes.
Counselor Corey?
Yes.
Counselor Essen?
Yes.
Mayor Andrews?
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. And with that, we will now move to new business. And under new business, we have a resolution 2016-3315, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute amendment number 1 to an intergovernmental agreement, an IGA, with the state of Oregon to provide right-of-way services for the city, for the Newberg-Dundee Bypass Project, agreement number 294906. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Karen Hoffman, city engineer. So this is one of those resolutions that you have some additional papers. The pink ones, I believe, are the actual amendment that is proposed tonight to the resolution or to the existing IGA. So a little bit of background. In preparation for the construction of the South Springbrook Road, the City of Newberg and ODOT entered into an IGA for right-of-way services. Agreement 29496 was signed in July 2013, and that is attached to your staff report. And this allowed for the ODOT to go ahead and acquire all of the right-of-way necessary for specifically the South Springbrook Road portion of the bypass. The expiration date for the agreement was set at June 30, 2016, and needs to be extended until August 30, 2019, and that's to help get the rest of the right-of-way that's necessary for the Wilsonville Road realignment and all of those pieces of the puzzle. So that's a major portion of the amendment. The other is some minor language to respond to new federal procurement codes. It's stuff that's required for all projects that use federal funds. So that's the other main change to this. And so again, this amendment...
Clarification, the other changes are those imposed more on ODOT?
Correct.
Comply with federal regulation?
Correct.
Thank you.
So this agreement will allow the proposed right-of-way and easement acquisition to be completed by ODOT and complete the bypass improvements. And that's the end of the staff report. If you have any questions.
Questions or comments from staff, from the council right now? You understand what's being asked for? You've had a chance to read through the amending language and the the part that really impacts the city is in the first page of that amendment, which is the terms of the agreement, deleting the old paragraph 2 and inserting a new paragraph 2, changing the date from June 30, 16 to August 30, 2019. Any questions on the part of the council? None appearing. Councilor Johnson?
More of a statement. I sent a number of questions to staff regarding this, just so, this is my first one of these, so I wanted to make sure I completely understood. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is basically letting the state assume control of any potential condemnation and negotiations and hearings. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
Okay, great. And then also, they're also going to be giving us a quarterly report on if there are any condemnation proceedings. Is that correct?
We have requested that, yes.
Okay, great. And that's pretty much all I had.
Okay. Any other questions? Pleasure of the council. Councilor Corey?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve Resolution 2016-3315.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Bacon?
As amended?
Yes, the motion would include as amended in the amending
No,
language.
the amendment is part of the packet.
This is correct.
Oh, okay, so it's included, okay.
This packet that you have is the exhibit that unfortunately didn't accompany it originally.
Okay.
But it is in there. That's a good question. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? The question has been called for. All in favor, are you ready? No further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. None appearing. Resolution 2016-3315 has been adopted. And with that, we move to Resolution 2016-3316. This is a 10-year extension to the advanced financing agreement with Providence Medical Center. Karn, you're carrying this one?
Yes, I am, Mayor.
Thank you.
Good evening again, Karn Hoffman, City Engineer. So I thought I'd start with a little bit of what advanced financing is. So our Newberg Municipal Code 3.20 talks about advanced financing of certain public improvements, and it provides a mechanism for developers to recover certain off-site development costs from benefiting properties. It's normally utilized by a developer that has a significant off-site improvements to bring utilities to their property for development. In most cases, the city acts as a middleman in this transaction. We assess the amounts, and then we don't pay any portion of those costs. We just pass those through, unless we have a developable property that can benefit from the improvement. These are different from an LID in the fact that benefited properties don't have to pay until they actually connect to the improvement. That's when the fee is required of them. Excuse me. So Providence Health System at 1001 Providence Drive connected a sanitary sewer main from the medical center site south to the Fernwood Sanitary Sewer Pump Station. The sanitary sewer line was designed with the capacity to serve the adjacent undeveloped property at such time as that property is developed. In 2006, the City Council authorized the city manager to execute that agreement, setting forth that advanced financing agreement, and the current agreement's expiration date is July 21st, 2016. The Providence, our municipal code does allow for a 10-year extension if the applicant requests, and they have requested a 10-year extension. However, there is a time frame that is supposed to be submitted by, and it's within 1 year to 6 months prior to the expiration. They did not meet that time frame. So the City Council has the discretion to approve or deny the request, taking into account the condition of the improvement and the public's best interest.
One thing to note that the improvement is in good condition. It has been inspected recently, and it is actually in very good condition for a 10-year-old sanitary sewer pipe. So the other thing, I don't want to get ahead of the mayor, but we did receive a letter from, and an objection to this resolution from somebody who represents WP99 LLC, who indicates that they believe that the request should not be made because it was not made in a timely manner.
Clarification from council on the letter we received from Samuel Gillen and Cantor.
Truman Stone, City Attorney. I received this email very late this afternoon, or this letter by email very late this afternoon. I tried calling Mr. White, but was unable to reach him. Did leave a message. I wanted, if I could, Mr. Mayor, give some clarification on this timing issue. So when our city engineer first brought the letter requesting the extension, which is, I believe, the blue sheet that came, we looked together at the municipal code, and there are code provisions in there that specify a certain time period, a time slot of no more than 12 months and no less than 12 months for making the request. And we came to the conclusion that this request was not made within that time slot. Then, as we were working through some of the issues today and looking at the actual agreement, I did some historical research on the way our code developed and evolved. And I think, I'll get to the punchline. The punchline is I think they are under the prior code is the way the agreement's written, and that it was timely, and I can explain that in more detail. The initial code provision that allowed for advanced financing agreements was passed in 1995. And there was no real discussion of extensions in that initial code. In 2001, that code was amended, and a provision allowing extension was added, which reads as follows. At the end of the 10-year period, the developer may request that the council authorize reimbursements for an additional period of up to 10 years. The city council shall approve such request unless it finds it would be contrary to the public's interest to do so. The actual agreement that the city approved in the resolution has provisions that mirror this 2001 code version. And it's on page 41, if you want to turn to that in your packets. So paragraph 10, which is the only paragraph on page 41, repeats this language. It says that this agreement's for a period of 10 years, provided that at the end of the 10-year period, the developer may request that the city council authorize reimbursement for an additional period of 10 years, up to 10 years. The city shall approve such request unless it finds that it would be contrary to the public's interest to do so. So this agreement was entered into in 2006. In 2007, there was a major rewrite of the code, and that's the code that we now have. That's the code that had the time slot provisions. So I looked at this, and I'm just trying to kind of sort through all these things, and there could be some question of which code controls, given the subsequent amendment. But I think because that specific language was incorporated into the agreement itself, that would carry the day, that would trump any subsequent code changes. So, in my opinion, my opinion changed from the opinion I first gave the city engineer when we didn't have all the information. But I believe, given the way the facts have developed in this, that it was a timely request.
Just a quick question to follow on. I think I'm in agreement with you. What, from my lay perspective, what you're saying is this was agreed to prior to the code change.
That's correct.
And the code, by general practice, that cannot have a retroactive application or ex post facto.
Well, generally, I'll give you the attorney answer. The general answer is yes, there are some exceptions. I would say that to the extent that the procedure changed, that, typically you can't substantively affect a contract by making a code amendment afterwards. To the extent that there were some procedural changes, I think there's an argument to be made that those procedural changes would be what are in place now. But the fact that we have specific language in the agreement itself, I think is the controlling language.
I tend to concur with that. Thank you. The contract is controlling. Yes. Yes, thank you. Questions for either staff or the city attorney? Councilor Johnson?
So basically, it's grandfathered, and it's grandfathered with the grandfathered language in the contract, or the agreement. Is that, I know I'm putting it very, very simply, and you're an attorney, but that's kind of...
Yeah, and you could look at it that way.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure I'm characterizing it correctly. My follow-up is, I was looking at the map on page 48, and it looks an awful lot like a map that Joe showed me the other day that has the bypass going through there. I would be curious to know, and I'm not sure this is going to weigh any on my decision, but I'm just curious to know how many, because you have the golf course on one side and hopefully a bypass on the other. How likely is it to connect to that pipe, to have future development to connect to that pipe? Thanks.
City manager? Or Karn? Which one of you want to do?
Let me try first, Mayor.
All right, go
So
ahead,
Joe
Mr.
Hannon, City Manager, because I mentioned something to Karn, which I passed back to the council member. It's true, golf course is there, and you got the bypass coming in. What could be developed, and then Karn can ask if it's likely that they're going to take their sewer there. But on the other portion on your map on 48, you see some blank spaces. Well, there's three, I think, parcels in there, but there is the Friendsview community, which has there, so that'd be the question whether that would likely take the sewer. And then there is another property there that's being considered by the Worth family. They're looking, it's one that's in a current discussion. So because I had mentioned there wasn't anyone else, and particularly in light of the letter tonight, so.
Yeah, and if I could just follow up on that, Mr. Mayor. I think the letter is from the attorneys for the other party that's, they say right in the letter, they've entered into a purchase agreement for some of the parcels. So apparently, at least that specific parcel would be affected by your decision tonight.
Follow. Councilor Woodruff, Councilor McKinney.
If you have a follow-on, mine's a different question.
Is yours a follow-on?
Yeah, in case you were talking about parcel. Is that the parcel for the clinic? So that is a major topic of discussion. And there, Karn, there is also a high-pressure gas line
within that vacant space there also? Is it east of this proposed sewer line or whatever? But that is something that the bypass corridor has to avoid as well, correct?
Councilor McKinney, that's correct. The sewer, let me be clear, the sewer line is actually in place and has been in place since 2006. So it coexists right now with the existing high-pressure gas line. But yes, the bypass, when they go to construct that, will have to deal with both of those utilities in their corridor.
Follow on? I would hate to see any encumbrance or anything that would cloud the issue regarding the proposed clinic. And members of staff can describe what that is.
City Manager?
Mayor and Council. So I think the question is the clinic property and the one above it, the empty parcel in front of Friendsview, would that be served or could that be served by this sewer line? Can you answer that?
Yes, the clinic could be served by this sanitary sewer line.
Councilor Woodruff, Councilor Essen.
And actually, let me follow on to that. And they have been informed of this in our conversations with them, pre-application conferences and everything, that this sewer line does exist.
Who is they?
The Oregon Clinic.
Thank you.
And that there is an advanced financing agreement that is associated with that sanitary sewer line. So they have been made aware.
Follow on, Councilor McKinney.
If the action that we take tonight, does that create any further impairment of the location of the clinic on that parcel of land that's being discussed?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Rux.
Doug Rux, Community Development Director. I think so, kind of going around this a little bit, so maybe I'll kind of focus right in on it. So we have been in discussions with an entity who has an interest in building a medical clinic to the east of Worth Drive and kind of to the southeast of Providence Drive. As the city engineer indicated, we did inform them about the sanitary sewer line and the advanced financing agreement that's in place. There are several parcels that are under the Worth ownership at this point in time that are undeveloped, north of Friendsview, and then, of course, kind of to the east of Worth Drive as well. The development area that's kind of at that intersection of Providence and Worth would need to be served by sanitary sewer. When we looked at that through the pre-op discussions, and where there were preliminary concepts about where buildings may be located, is that they would connect to that sanitary sewer line. That is the discussion tonight of the advanced financing agreement. Further to the north, north of the Friendsview facility, there's another vacant parcel, and the city engineer indicated that could potentially connect to this sanitary sewer line. But we also have development that could occur to the north in the future that would also connect to this particular sanitary sewer line. There's a number of moving pieces. Things are not solidified. Councilor McKinney raised the question about the bypass going through here. Yes, there is a high-pressure gas main that crosses the same general area that we're having discussions. It is to the west of the sanitary sewer line. We're in discussions and talking about a variety of how to make this work bypass and the potential for a medical clinic to go into this particular site.
Now, Councilor Woodruff.
Thank you. Karen, I'm sorry, I need to back up a little bit, and I'm still not totally clear on what advanced financing means. I guess I'm just not quite clear where it says the reimbursements will be delivered to the developer. That's from the benefiting properties? I'm not quite clear where the city falls into that exactly. If you could explain for me, please.
I can do that. Karen Hoffman, city engineer. So the way this would work is that when the benefiting property comes in, they would hook up to that sanitary sewer line, and when they hook up, they would pay the dollar amount that is described in here, depending on what their parcel size is and those types of things. And they would pay that to the city plus the interest rate. And then we would turn around and pay that back to, in this case, Providence Health Systems. So Providence Health System is the one that put out the money originally, and then these other developers would come in and basically reimburse Providence for some portion of it, the portion that benefits their property in particular. Because in most cases, if these properties had come in first, they would have brought the sewer line up to their north property line, say, and they would have paid their share of it. So this is just getting their fair share at the back end.
Following? So then if this financing agreement expires, as it is due to soon, then Providence wouldn't get reimbursed from those benefiting properties. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
Okay.
Councilor Essen?
I'm a little confused. Is this the sewer line that is already in place? Or is there one is this suggesting that we build one?
Councilor Essen, sewer line is actually already in place. It has been in place since 2007.
Right, and it's already to the hospital. So what is happening is we're just doing a financing agreement that will extend being able to have somebody be reimbursed.
Yeah, there's already a financing agreement in place, but it expires
Right.
Thursday. So this would extend that agreement for another 10 years.
Councilor Johnson?
I had quite the extensive email conversation with Finance Director Zook about one of the things that was in the agreement was a 9% interest rate. I wasn't completely sure if we do a new agreement, if we needed to ratchet it down to today's interest rates, or because the original outlay of capital was done back in 2006, we should keep the interest rate the same. I was just curious if there was if somebody can explain the interest rate issue to me a little bit, to make sure I understand it, because right now it's about as clear as mud, so, sorry, it was just an email conversation, I didn't get a chance to call, so
We'll start
sorry.
with the city attorney, and then if necessary,
Then somebody can bail me out if I can't answer your question. So Councilor Johnson, under the prior version of the statute, the city ordinance, the statute, set a 9% interest rate. Now, if you're in the legal world, you see a significance of 9%. 9% is the statutory interest rate that applies to like court judgments and all kinds of things if no other interest rate specified. So the fact that back in 95 or 2001 or during that time they settled on 9%, to me makes perfect sense, because that would be kind of the default rate of interest if there's no other interest rate specified. As I said, in 2007, this code provision had a major, it was completely rewritten. And I didn't mention this when I spoke about it before, but apparently there was some litigation that the city was in at that time that kind of challenged some of our code provisions and whether they were valid or not. And so the city undertook this complete rewrite of the code. What resulted is an interest rate that's currently exists that's set at the prime rate, and it's set basically an annual adjustment based on the anniversary date of the financing agreement. The current financing agreement that we're talking about renewing doesn't have an adjustable interest rate or anything like that. And again, the kind of criteria that was in the prior code and under this contract that you're asked to renew is whether the council finds that it would be contrary to the public's interest. So if you made such a finding, maybe interest rate would be one of the kind of categories, but you would have to somehow connect a finding to, or some factual piece to a finding that it's not in the public's interest. Otherwise, the way this is written, it seems to be almost automatic renewal.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councilor McKinney?
The phrase "clear as mud" has come up probably every council meeting for
No,
2 months.
it's chocolate, it's not mud. Are you ready to address the question? Councilor Benton? Did you sign up?
No, I did not.
Uh-oh. Stephen, you know better than that.
Mayor and council, my name is Stephen Palmer. I'm an attorney that works with John Bridges. John is here, but not here in the state of Oregon. He's on vacation. He just left
Now,
a few hours ago.
one thing, Steve, before you get further. Before you leave, you will fill out the form.
I will, Your Honor.
You will. Continue.
I will, Mayor. And frankly, the reason why I was being a little bit silent on this is because frankly, I thought I had the expert here, and I certainly do, in terms of her presentation. Mr. Bridges is representing Providence, and I'm just here kind of in lieu of Mr. Bridges. More than anything else is I want to kind of point out all the things that Providence has done for our community. They put out a large amount of money back in 2006 with not really a high expectation that they might ever recoup some of those costs. And I agree with Mr. Stone that the 9% interest rate I thought was frankly the right rate, because if anything, it could be higher, because it's a very speculative investment on whether or not you're going to get any return on your money. But they chose to do it, and I think the 9% rate is the right amount, because regardless of whatever happens here in the next few years, they may or may not get some of their $147,000 that they put out many years ago with zero interest on it. This line is already in existence. It's been there since 2007. As they've pointed out, as she's pointed out, this pipe is in very good condition. There's no public health issues whatsoever with this pipe. If we extend this for another 10 years, it's not going to be any harm to the public, and all we're doing is we're preserving Providence's option to hopefully get back some of the money that they've expended. And they've done a good job about putting money back into our community, and I hope that this council would find that it is in the council's best interest and not contrary to public policy to approve it at this time.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Palmer? Your mic, please.
Karn, is this largely housekeeping? And then Truman, there's nothing really in the language of the original contract or the amended contract that presents any major issues here?
City Engineer Carnhot, yes, it's mainly housekeeping at this point.
City Attorney?
Truman Stone. One thing I would just remind the council, the city just acts as a conduit between two private parties. So as far as whether there's any effect or any interest in the city, it's really not. We're basically brokering a deal between two private parties and collecting money from one and delivering it to another. I'm sorry, what was the other part of your question?
Your mic, please.
Language of the contract.
There's nothing that implicates a real city interest. Again, the test for the council is whether the public, writ large, whether there's a public interest that the council has some concern about. The other thing, if I could follow on to another, about the 9%, and I don't see it in here, but I'm fairly confident that I read that it's a 9% simple interest, so it's at least not compounding.
Councilor Woodruff?
Thank you. Truman, I have just a clarification from you that reading through the actual agreement itself, that 6-month to 1-year period is not in that agreement, and so you consider that not applicable? Is that correct?
That's correct. The 6-month to 1-year time period was not adopted until a year after this agreement was entered into.
Any further questions? Thank you, Stephen, for coming forward. Appreciate it. And you will fill out the form.
They won't let you leave.
Sergeant of Arms has got his directions. All right. Councilor Bacon,
I was ready if you wanted.
go ahead.
Mayor, I'd like to make a resolution that we adopt, I would like to make a recommendation that we adopt Resolution 2016-3316, approving the extension knowing that the timetable was not met.
Second. It's been moved and seconded, I think, to adopt Resolution 2016-3316, authorizing an extension to the advanced financing agreement with Providence Medical Center. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Johnson?
But
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah, I know. It says that the time frame was not met, but then you made the argument that it was met because it was outlined in the contract and also the previous code. So do we need to amend our motion here?
Do you want a different motion?
I would recommend fixing that recital.
I withdraw my second.
All right.
Can I just read the top, the subject line?
If I could do my job and try to help you out here. You might think about a motion adopting this resolution, but striking paragraph 5 of the recitals.
The recitals are not part of the code, right?
Well, the formal action is in the City of Newberg resolves as follows, but I think it could lend to some confusion by having incorrect factual recitations in the recital section.
Then the motion really would be the adoption of this resolution and the deletion of item number 5 in the recitals.
That's my recommendation.
Thank you.
So moved.
Son of a gun, I got snookered on that one. Councilor Johnson?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Do you understand what I just did to myself? All right, any further discussion?
Mayor,
Questions?
I just wanted to point out something.
No?
Yeah, that I think that this is the right thing to do, one thing, because it's in the contract. The second is when Providence put up all the money, it was in a different time. The economy crashed right after that. I'm sure they had some expectation at the time that someone would build next to them. So I really believe this is the right thing to do for Providence for those reasons.
Any further discussion? The question has been called for. Are you ready for the vote? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. None appeared. Motion passes with the amending language.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
The Esquire question sign has been.
With that, we move to Resolution 2016-3320, which is a resolution authorizing the city manager to implement a 2% cost of living adjustment to non-represented employees effective July 1, 2016, in accordance with fiscal year 2016-17 adopted budget. Mr. Zook.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Matt Zook, Finance Director. With the expert advice of City Manager Hannon and the discussions that we've had early on, one of his questions was regarding the process of implementing a COLA. And during the budget process, as my report mentions, the cost of living adjustments were built into the budget. The two collective bargaining agreements for the police and the public works are already stated as a minimum and maximum, and they're tied to the CPI, but the CPI, as a report, is 1.2 for the benchmark for those two contracts. So the 2% minimum falls into place. The non-represented employee group does not have a particular contract, and so in an effort to maintain the integrity of the compensation and classification study that was done in the fall and maintain the distance between management, et cetera, and the workers, the recommendation and the way the budget was built was to have that 2% cost of living adjustment in the budget as well. So, but during the budget process, it was not particularly called out, and so we felt like tonight would be an appropriate measure to put it into a resolution format and ask the council to go ahead and approve via resolution the 2% COLA. So I state that the impact on the budget, again, it's already built in. It's approximately $129,000 across the 7 or 8 different funds that hold personnel services. So that during the next budget cycle, we'll be there'll be more information in the budget document that pertains to that information and those salary schedules. So that is my staff report for this evening.
Questions or comments for staff? None appearing. Councilor Corey?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve Resolution 2016-3320.
Second. Been moved and seconded to adopt Resolution 2016-3320. No amendments? No amendments. Any further discussion? The question has been called for. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. None appearing. The motion passes 7-0. And with that, we move to a resolution, I'm going to guess this is 2016-3320. Mine says 16-3323, which I think it means 2016. It does it on the resolution. We're fine. This is one that authorizes the city manager to approve the purchase of an Airbus Vista 911 phone system for $243,156.48. Ms. Newell, you're carrying this one?
I am. I think
Thank
the
you.
Chiefs had a pretty long day. Basically, this is a request to allow the council to authorize our new city manager, Joe Hannon, to sign a contract to replace our existing 911 phone system. Our phone system is 7 years old. They typically replace them about every 5 years.
And when you say phone system, what phone system are you talking about?
The 911 phone system.
Thank you.
Not the city phone system. This is purely 911, and the funding comes from OEM, from your 75 cents tax that you pay every month on your phone bill.
So make sure I understand this correctly. This is just a pass-through.
That's correct.
The Office of Emergency Management is the one that is really footing the bill, but we have to authorize it in order for that money to pass through to purchase your recommended system.
That's correct. It's interesting because I don't think we've actually ever had this contract come before the city council. No, you weren't here.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add something. So when this came up, actually to my office for a signature, and I looked at it and looked at the terms of the contract, the city is actually contracting to make this purchase. The money is coming to the city from the state, and then the city is using that money to buy this. But this is a contract for $243,000, which clearly under our purchasing code is something that the council does need to authorize. And it perhaps in the past it was overlooked or was a lower number and not subject to the code, but that's why it's coming before you tonight.
It's nice to keep us honest.
Off with his head.
Yes. Any further questions of Mary? Mary?
No.
Do you have something further? All right. Stephen McKinney?
I'd like to urge the adoption of resolution number 2016-3323. Does this need to be read by title only?
No, it's a resolution, but thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been seconded. That come from Essen? Very good. Essen on the second. You've heard the motion to adopt resolution 2016-3323, authorizing city manager to approve the purchase of an Airbus Vista 911 system for $243,156.48. Is there any further discussion? The question has been called for. Are you prepared? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. None appearing. You got a new phone system, right?
Thank you.
And with that, we now move to council business, and we have the discussion of the LOC request for identifying what we believe should be the 4 top priorities for LOC to be working on. I will hope that you have done your homework on this. You saw what the department heads had indicated, and interestingly enough, the department heads had hit on 3 of the ones that I think are important. I don't know about the rest of you. So let me try this. I'm going to just throw these out. You have, of the ones that they want only 4 from us that we think that are the 4 most important. And I'm going to suggest that we have the property tax reform, the mental health investments, and transportation funding is 3 of them. And I would throw out the need for housing assistance programs as number 4. But I will gladly accept discussion on any others. Are there other priorities that you feel are more important than those?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Woodruff?
I apparently left my marked copy at home. But one that will, as we all know, these are all important. One that I had marked off was the G, the Oregon Energy Code, for heating homes and businesses and updating the energy code more frequently.
All right. Any others? Councilor Essen?
I'm not really certain, but the disaster mapping may be an important one at some point. And I'm working on a project right now to
see what we can do to get ready for the big one in our neighborhoods. I'll be attending a meeting this Wednesday, but there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done there. But I'm not certain how important the mapping is. I think it's important, but I'm just wondering why why they need to do that. But at the same time, if we are in a position that we're going to really be hit, I think that'd be a good piece of information to have.
Let me give just a little bit of clarification, which may help. They're looking for some consensus from around the state, and not everybody's going to agree on the same 4 around the state. Hopefully, all 242 cities will have responded. I don't think we'll get all of those. I don't see Granite coming in with one person, but it could have. These will be the prime areas that the LOC will be moving in their legislative package. But it does not preclude other issues that what the slang that we use around, I've used around LOC for a number of years, is what's in our back pocket. If something comes up, we know this is an issue and we'll work on it. We have these things that can be in a back pocket. We may find we're absolutely at loggerheads on one of the primary ones, then we need to substitute. One of the ones that has been brought to my attention, and I think it impacts all 7 of us, and also maybe some of the other people, and that is looking for some legislative resolution to the Handy decision down in Lane County. And that's something that I think as we forward our answer, I'm going to recommend that we append that as a 5th item to it. So if you want to change any of these others, knowing that they are looking for 4 boxes, but it doesn't mean that when we forward this, that the city manager cannot append the resolution of the Handy, which I believe we should have, because that's the one that's going to impact all of us before it's over with on how we conduct our business.
And it's not even on the list.
And it's not even on the list. Now, there's a lot of talk going on right now that there's not going to be much of a legislative movement on this. But I think if we bring some pressure forward that we would like to see it, then we have given LOC some indication we would encourage them to work on it. So how would you like to address the area of the energy code and which one that you were talking about, the energy code, and the other one on the mapping? Which one is that?
That's a C under committee. Ogamy.
Oh, the disaster mapping. All right. Councilor Johnson, Councilor McKinney.
Yeah, just to add another thing in here. I'm just curious, we heard from the city manager tonight about 911 and some of the challenges we're facing there. I don't see that on our list, and having read the 911 chunk of this, it seems to me like it would be in our best interest to maybe forward that, the sweeps and ending the sweeps and where they take money out of that fund and borrow it for other things. And in here, it mentioned that we were not getting federal funds because we were doing that. To me, the bigger that fund is, the more it helps us with future upgrades to our 911 system. I just was curious if that was one. I know what staff had put that on their list, but I would appreciate it being on our list, just because that's a direct need that we're going to have in the next, couple of years.
Councilor McKinney.
Just facing some of the tasks that we have to dedicate funding to, I think property tax reform is going to make the list. That's a given, all right? But transportation funding, 911 emergency communication, and PERS. Property tax, transportation, 911, and PERS, because everybody's going to get beat up on PERS. And I take it that that's a legislative issue, PERS. And then the fifth one, if you wanted to add it, the handy thing, although I think the courts are probably going to deal with handy rather than the legislature or whatever. But those would, if I was ranking them, property tax, transportation funding, 911, and PERS.
Well, I don't want to push for, but the mental health, we had a movement on that in the 2015, which started it. But if you look at what has been going on recently, and we had this evening, we had a moment of silence dealing with an issue which a lot of that is dealing with, I don't think, a sound mind. We just had a situation down in Baton Rouge. There's another situation coming up similarly. We've had some incidences of young people in our community deciding that maybe it wasn't worthwhile to live anymore. These, I think, are all mental health issues. We do not have the capability, as it stands right now, to handle these people. At the hospital, they do not have the ability to handle these people when they are brought to them. We don't have a respite for the mental health in this community. We're struggling to put together the teams. I would like to see us not ignore that particular one. I think that's an inherent one that is really, we're really struggling with it. But go ahead. That's just me. Councilor Bacon and Councilor McKinney.
It sounded French there for a second. I agree with the property tax reform. I agree with the transportation funding. I agree with housing because that affects not only the vibrancy of a community, but also affects economic development. And Mayor, I do agree with you that mental health is a extremely important issue in our community. It affects, we spend a lot of money on police on it. We spend a lot of money with police and fire, paramedics. It's been an issue for 20, 30 years now. My parents were in the business of helping people in halfway homes where their families deserted them. Mental health is still one of those shamed illnesses that we need to do a better job supporting families, the people in need in our community. So I am with you, Mayor.
Councilor Essen.
Well, I just wanted to add a comment about what you said. I'm still concerned about the young man that was planning to go over to, I think it was it the high school, and shoot the place up, and it was spoiled, but, he's somewhere being taken care of, I suppose. But at some point, they're going to let him out again. And so that is something that we could well become more aware of rather quickly. And I don't know if if there's much going on in that area, but that is natural disasters and getting shot up. Those are two of the things that I think the community would love us to think about. So I kind of agree with that one. I also agree with the other ones. I mean, if we really look at, okay, what would help us, then, yeah, we need to do something with their transportation funding, and be nice to be able to have some taxes to solve some of these problems. So yeah, all of them are great projects. And I mean, as far as housing is concerned, of course, it's not everybody can even afford a house, especially not in this town. So they're all great ones. I just don't know how to come up with the top four.
Counselor Johnson?
So are you looking for a motion? Is that kind of, do we want to do this as a motion, or are we just letting staff kind of
Well,
listen to
no,
the
no, we're not gonna-
conversation?
This is our decision. This is
Okay.
not staff's decision.
Okay.
This is
So,
our
well,
decision.
then I'll go ahead and make a motion and we can start discussing it and moving forward with that. Does that sound okay?
Try it.
Okay, let's go. Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion that we forward on to the League of Oregon Cities as our legislative priorities for the 2017 legislative session. Property tax reform, transportation funding and a policy package, a 911, where is it here? 911 emergency communications, and the mental health issue that you brought up that I don't have in front of me. So that's outlined in the priorities.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Second, McKinney? With the proviso that we also add the handy issue.
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
that'd be another motion.
Okay. It's in your motion.
Okay.
It's implied. Huh?
It's implied.
Is there anybody that is not okay with that?
Discuss that for hours.
Yes, we could. The whole list is very valuable, unfortunately.
I'll have to call for the question.
The question has been called for. The motion being that we forward transportation, property tax, 911 emergency, mental health, and add the handy issue as our recommendations from the City Council of the City of Newberg. Are you ready for the question? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. None appearing. We'll have the staff move those forward.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
if I may,
you may.
make a
No.
second motion, and that would be our backup or secondary priorities we'd send to the league, and include the items that we have discussed here tonight, such as the disaster mapping, the housing, the handy decision, and energy, the energy code. Just as kind of these are our top four, and maybe with some language that says we feel that all of them are important, and these would be our top 8.
Maybe that motion ought to be, they better be paying attention to every one of the other.
Yeah, exactly. So, sorry. That would be my
I'm
motion.
hoping staff is hearing this recommendation. Okay, all right, very good. We have a second item on there. There has been a question come up that I raised, that was raised with me, and I brought to staff that apparently is coming to you. So who is carrying this one on suggestion boxes?
The mayor.
I didn't put it on here. City manager.
So, Mayor and Council, I thought it was your initiative, and it was, in the past, we have had suggestion boxes. They've not received a tremendous response. That could be for all kinds of reasons. I wasn't here, so I can't tell you. Well, I can tell you that some of them, just by what they were located, we had them in City Hall. We had them in the library, and the response was that some came in.
Public safety building.
Yes, and I'm sorry, in public safety building. We'll do whatever the council suggests. It is important to get suggestions from the public. Occasionally, we'll get them an email, and whenever they come into us, you'll see them. I'll forward them. There may be a better way. I'd suggest that most often it's electronically rather than boxes anymore, but I thought that was I'm sorry, I thought it was your initiative,
No,
Mayor.
well, no.
Okay.
It was brought to me and I passed it on. I copped out. Let's see, Councilor McKinney, maybe Councilor Bacon, I don't know whether we had this activity. This was started by my predecessor, and we had 3 boxes, and the management of it and how it got done and who took, we went, first of all, the council was going to review these and then pass them on, and then we had a new administration came in that wanted all of them brought to the administration, and then they would look at them, they would review them with the staff, and then they would report back to the council. And it just kind of got to be a hodgepodge. I'm hearing a little glimmer of light with the suggestion that the city manager made about maybe there is a vehicle that could be created electronically that might be worth exploring. But keeping track of the boxes and then who had the keys and where did the keys go and who was looking at it, and it became almost more of an administrative burden than we were getting out of it. The quality of the suggestions was somewhat questionable. If Councilor McKinney remembers a few of those.
I would say always.
I don't know that there was one or two in 5 years that were maybe of some value.
And we got posted an image of the car.
And we were constantly getting diatribes and graffiti and everything else in there. So, but I did have an individual stop me on the street, which started it. I've been in City Hall twice in the last week looking for your suggestion box. Where is it? Don't you do that anymore? And they were quite uptight that we didn't have the suggestion box. They had a concern about the way storefronts were being kept up in downtown Newberg, and they wanted to suggest that maybe we needed to do something about that, but we didn't have a suggestion box, and they were just a little bit bent out of shape. Well, that was the first time I'd heard about it in probably 3.5 years, so is it a big deal? I don't know, but thank you for putting it on there. If you wish, as a council, that we look at this and maybe reinstitute it, or look at some other vehicle to give the council or our citizenry a chance to make suggestions, I think I'm open to it, and I think you guys are probably open to it also. But I don't have an answer other than what we had really wasn't producing for us what the administrative hassle was to do it. So, Councilor Woodruff?
Well, I was just thinking, maybe our staff here tonight, I think, has all worked for different cities. If, not to put you on the spot, but if in other cities you've worked for, if there has been something that has worked, maybe you know. Oh, look, there's staff saying right now.
So when I worked for the city of Canby.
Identify yourself,
Sue
please.
Ryan, city recorder who never speaks. When I worked for Canby, I backed up the front desk as well as the city clerk as the deputy recorder there, and did urban renewal and a bunch of other stuff. So we had a complaint system that had a spreadsheet where we would assign numbers when people would call. And anyone in the city, it was set up so all the front desk staff could access it, assign the number. And it was our job at the front desk every week on Fridays to mail out cards, to ask, to track it, to mail out the card to the customer, because that's how we called our citizens, was customers, to see if their concern had been addressed. And we were the ones who forwarded it to the appropriate department and figured out where it went. And then usually once a month, we wrote a summary report for the city recorder, who put it in the council packet. And it would just tally, it was always the same thing, honestly, potholes and streetlights. But occasionally there were other suggestions in there, and, weeded out the ones that were just rants but people liked it a lot because, it was our job to either call them and let them know it had been forwarded. They got that little personal touch. I don't know how it would work here. It's a different setup and staff would have to talk about it, but that's just my experience at Canby.
Question, if I may, Sue, how did the comments and/or complaints or suggestions, it doesn't always have to be a complaint, it may be a bright idea, how did they come to you?
We had people walk in. Canby's City Hall is downtown, so it was very active. We had people email. We had people call. We got every kind there was, and we also would put the comment cards out at city council meetings. So if someone came to a council meeting and they weren't there to speak, or maybe they were, but they wanted to make a suggestion, they could at the council meeting. And then that was like part of my job, was to gather the cards and, So they did it that way. We didn't handle all the complaints. I certainly did not go out and look down sewer lines or chase turkeys around town. Ask me another time about the Canby Town turkeys. But it was our job to kind of coordinate it, so, as the front desk.
Councilor McKinney?
Well, I think it's in our interest to hear from friends and neighbors. I won't call them customers. And if given the opportunity, they need to express something that delights them or concerns them, there needs to be a couple of receptacles around to be able to do that. I think that in order to get really legitimate concerns and suggestions, it should be something on our website that people assign their name to or whatever, to legitimize whatever it is that they're trying to suggest to civic leaders about what would make the city better. Because you're always going to get the rantings. There's no way to escape those or whatever. But to provide a vehicle like the city website or something that can raise it to a level of legitimacy, because we are open to good ideas. And my friends and neighbors need to be able to complain. And if it's legit, it's in our best interest to deal with the issue there. So I do like the idea of the suggestion box, but I'd like to create a vehicle that legitimizes it better, so that if it's worth their complaining on a specific site, then they know that then we know that it's a bona fide concern and it's worthy of the time that staff and other people have to take to deal with the issues.
City manager, your past experiences with this, pluses and negatives.
It's similar to what's been here. Oftentimes, boxes come in and it's trash. It's a place for, people to just throw paper. We do need suggestions. Electronic, on the website, that makes sense, so that people can do it. Most often when I found people's most valuable is like a couple of times a year doing a citizen satisfaction, like what do you think's going on with the city and what are things that can be improved? So in a very formal way. And I think that should be part of our 2020 program. I've suggested to that group. We should know at least once a year, probably maybe twice, of saying we did these goals, we've had all these things. Is your life better this year than it was last year? And keep track of that over 10 years, 20 years, and be a benchmark. And then as part of that, saying, do you have some ideas, suggestions, bring it back? When you get compliments, those typically come in. Sometimes people will write notes, and when we get those, you will get a copy of each one. That just makes sense for us to do it. And I'll send them to Colin so he sees them. And then if it's a complaint, like an email, then we'll likewise send it. And then what have we done? I think the example of the rats is, now that's a code enforcement, but that's a good example that we get it, we respond to it right away, and then send it to you. So that if you see something that's not being responded to, then we don't wait a long time or wait for reports. You just give us the feedback.
Councilor McKinney?
I remember when we talked about using SurveyMonkey or a vehicle like that on a regular basis to get honest feedback in a systematic way from different segments of our city.
Councilor Johnson?
First off, I wanted to start by just mentioning how awesome staff has been. People in my neighborhood found out I got on city council, and I've had quite a few phone calls and emails and Facebook messages, and I don't know if Joe or Doug want to answer this, but I think I send in 2 or 3 questions probably a week from different citizens reaching out. And they are always very, very fast to get answers back to me. And so I think, one, we're kind of walking suggestion boxes if you make yourself available that way. I know I don't make it all the community events, but I know that like Councilor Essen and some other, Denise and Councilor McKinney have all done that. So I don't want us to negate ourselves from being part of that. I've seen the survey, the actual community survey work really well in other communities where once a year, and I believe, and don't quote me, Portland State University helped one city create kind of a survey that was a little more scientific, or, as scientific as something like that can get. And they included everything from economic to parks to, they worked with the school district to get some questions from the school district. And they even talked to a couple of businesses in town and got some, fill out the survey, get a $5 off certificate to somewhere to kind of incentivize it too. So I would love to see something like that. I think that would be an excellent tool for us, especially with all the master plans and things we're working on going into the future. I think it would be a very, very useful tool, not to say, well, the survey says this and make that decision, but as a piece of the overarching kind of policy decisions we're making. That's my 2 cents. I wouldn't mind seeing a box in City Hall, but I kind of question the logistics of having one everywhere and picking all those up, so that's just me.
Councilor Essen?
Well, you brought up a good point. I bet you we all get little inputs. And like, for instance, our Facebook page, all I have to do is the Greens Facebook page. They weren't real happy with the letter that went out to have us prune our trees in the summertime when the sap was all going to run down. Could we do that survey in the winter so that they didn't have to prune their trees up in the summer? And I haven't gotten that back to the Public Works Department yet. But and then there was another one about why are we sweeping our streets on Thursday when the garbage trucks are we always have to put our garbage cans out on Thursday, and then the street sweepers come by. Why don't you do it on Wednesday? And by the way, I looked, and Wednesday is when the street sweepers came by, so we can all, I think that you must have changed that already, so I'll need to tell them that that's happened. But would we just send an email to the department head or to add with a copy to the city manager? Would that be approach just to handle the stuff we already get?
Well, I think that's what we're doing, and that would seem appropriate, that we continue. And I think we did answer the one about the trees that went back out. So so I think all of you should have gotten. The idea is that all of you get the response, and then, I've seen other places where suggestions come back or complaints, and there's a column in the paper too. I've seen that. You can do, any of those are possible. The thing about the survey was, I just think that when we start doing goals by the community, we need a benchmark. And when you're doing those kinds of satisfaction, that's oftentimes you say, do you have any other ideas? It doesn't take the place of, you catch somebody in the hall and they say, why aren't we doing this? I think we look for those, and I think all of us relish answering questions like that. They're not an imposition. You get something and we get it right back to you and to that person right away.
City Attorney?
If you're interested in just a bit about the tree and the letter, I can address that. So that came from code enforcement. And I would agree generally it's better to trim trees when they're dormant for the health of the tree. That being said, these trees grow aggressively during the spring and they leaf out, and they're blocking stop signs, they're blocking sidewalks, they're in the street where the street sweeper can't get there and stuff. We really can't wait for wintertime to have those trees trimmed. Now, ideally, the homeowner would have done it last winter so that this spring when the tree grew, it wouldn't have grown into those troublesome areas. So I've instructed Brad to use his discretion on that, and if there's individual circumstances to look at those. But clearly, if they're blocking stop signs, we're not waiting for winter to get those trees trimmed.
Councilor Essen?
Yeah, I know this is a whole new subject, but what I said is the street sweepers, I sent something back myself without asking you. And I said, the street sweepers have to make it down the streets, people have to walk down the sidewalks. The school buses have to drive down the streets, and the garbage trucks need to pick up the garbage. And we can't wait for winter. You know, we need to do it now. So that's when they have to do it. And yeah, the trees suffer. I understand that. But those are the kinds of questions that come up. That's the reason I use that issue. But yeah, perhaps I should have asked you, but that's what I already said.
To the issue on the council agenda, I think we're not going to revert back to where we were, but we'll, I think, with some input from staff, et cetera, and maybe we sharing some of the input that we have, that we'll come up with that together with partnering with the goals that the city manager speaking about in the future will give us something that we can, kind of a benchmark we can work with on that. Anything on the financials? You're off the hook, Matt. I have two on the three, I guess, all of a sudden. The Newberg Old Fashioned Festival Parade, you're all on board, 9 o'clock, and we have our nine people, not 10, 9 people from Boysdorf will be joining us. Now, you're going to be, as it stands right now, you're going to be in the early part of the parade, and then there'll be a dismount point right out here at the end of Memorial Park, where you'll actually join the court, and then you'll be able to review the rest of the parade as it goes by. So you'll be at the beginning and then be able to see what the rest of the parade is, along with our friends from the visitor.
Will we be on the engine, or are we going to be?
You'll be on the engine. You'll be on the engine. The Burgermeister and I are supposed to be in an open-top car. We'll see what happens. Do we have, by the way, while I'm at it, do we have any extra signs? We have signs for the fire engine, right, Sue?
They're outdated. I can get them remade.
Okay. We probably need a pair for the mayor and the Burgermeister for the other vehicle.
Okay, I'll get the spelling of his name.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
And then the other one I had I'm just going to do a quick and dirty of some of the things that the Old Fashioned Festival our Austrian guests are going to be involved in. They will be arriving sometime around 6:40 p.m. on Thursday the 28th. And they will be, part of the organizing crew will be in Portland to pick them up, and there will be a very small, short reception at Windrose and then for sleep. On Friday, they will be going to Greeters. They will be having breakfast there at Greeters. They will then coming to the City Hall, to the mayor's office in the City Hall at 9 o'clock, and at noon, they're going to be at Wolves and People. Now, are you familiar with Wolves and People? That's a new event place out on Benjamin Road. In the afternoon, they will be going to tasting rooms, and then there will be an evening meal that we don't have all of the details on. On Saturday, they will be meeting for the parade, and then following the parade, they will be having lunch at Subterra, and then they will, in the afternoon, they have some free time in the afternoon, and then at 5 o'clock, they're on the main stage, and then at 6:30, there's another appearance at Beef and Brews with dinner at Beef and Brews. Brews and Barbecue, and they'll have dinner at Brews and Barbecue and the fireworks. On Sunday, there's the pancake feed at the Memorial Park, then time to go through the booths. There'll be the Austrian Chuck and Art appearance with the map. They have lunch on their own. There'll be at 1 o'clock, there's going to be Austrian music on the main stage. At 2, there will be a panel discussion at Chehalem Cultural Center with a presentation from the representative on the Boysdorf City Council that is in charge of sister city activities, Jochen Glanzig, and he'll have a panel, and then there'll be a community reception, and then they are going up to the Allison for drinks, it looks like, and then there'll be an evening meal on Saturday of some kind. Monday is breakfast on their own, and then they'll be leaving for the Oregon coast, going to Pacific City, Lincoln City, and Newport, and returning back later that evening while we are in council session. On Tuesday, they will have a tour of ADEC. They're going to the Oregon Olive Mill, and then they will be at Adelshine's and 2 or 3 other wineries, and then they'll be at Tunes on Tuesday. Wednesday, they are heading out for a trip to the Columbia Gorge and Mount Hood area. They will be going to Timberline, Parkway, and maybe having dinner at McMiniman's on the way home. And on Thursday, they will be leaving on a tour for downtown Portland, shopping at the Nike store. They will be meeting with the Austrian consulate, a waterfront tour, lunch maybe at Macy's. Then they'll be coming back here, have a little downtime, and then at 5:30 they leave for a rodeo at the Yamhill County Fair. And we were very fortunate in having the fair comp tickets for those people for that evening. And then on Friday, they leave for the airport. So that is their schedule, just to give you a quick.
So they can sleep on the plane.
They are going to be busy, honest to goodness. And it was real great. Joe brought this in for me. They talked about this earlier in the presentation of medals. And this is the medal that Ken was awarded by the Special Olympics. And it's a Special Olympics medal recognizing skills. And this was awarded to Ken Austin. And Ken said then to me, or to the audience, that he wanted this, to give this to the mayor and then have it on display at City Hall in recognition for the city since they were doing it. So we now have this medal. Mine is with a picture of me holding the torch, and it is on that I have right now that I will at some time in the future give to the city as part of that one also. That will be eventually go to the city on that. So that's what that one is, and we will have this mounted and properly displayed. I don't know whether you pay that much attention, and city manager mentioned it to me. We have in the lower lobby, we have had a display of our sister city of Sago City. We have moved the Poisdorf display down to the upper lobby and on the first floor, or the planning lobby. So we have that, and if you haven't paid any attention to it up there in the administration, take a look at it on the planning level of our downtown, of our city hall. Councilor Denise.
I was approached by a couple city employees about smoking on city property and if we would be able to ban it like the school district has. It could be, I guess, very upsetting to people who don't smoke when you're sitting there eating lunch out at the picnic table and your other people come out and smoke at the table. And so I am just here to ask if there's any interest with the council on banning smoking on city property.
Don't we have a ban on it at this time?
Buildings, I believe, are banned, but not property.
I know Memorial Park, there's no smoking, and that's our park. Francis Square, there's no smoking. That's ours. Go ahead.
Truman Stone. We do have behind City Hall, there is a picnic table, and there is a smoking receptacle out there. You can't smoke near the door under state law or within the building. I do believe there are some city employees who do smoke and go out there. But frankly, most of the people that I've seen using it are not city employees. They're from neighboring businesses or just people passing by.
While your mic is on, what is the prohibition that we have that the council adopted 10 years ago, 15 years ago about smoking on city property?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
Mayor,
We'll look for it.
I don't think it was that long ago, because I was on the council when we did that.
We adopted
Mhm.
that. Counselor Essen?
Isn't that, I thought there was some state law about not doing it. I'm just in question of that. Whether or not there's a state law that you can't smoke on city property. I'm just asking.
We'll come back on that. I think it's a good question. Anything else for the council this evening? You've worked hard. We've covered an awful lot of area. Thank you very much. We will get together, get that report out to LOC by Friday, which is the deadline. With that, I'm going to entertain a motion.
So moved.
It has been moved and seconded. Gruntle.